Alright, the third video and the last video for this series, Grade 10, South African Curriculum and Syllabus, from a list of CAPS approved poetry from an anthology of poems for the Grade 10s. This last poem is called The Right Word. It is a little bit longer. Please excuse the cat as it is now going to jump. And yeah, alright, so carrying on. So it is a bit of a longer poem. It's a little bit more intricate than the other two that we went through. Reapers in a Mealie Field is obviously based on a lot of imagery, alliteration, metaphor, simile, personification. So the poet really is trying to describe and set a scene that they want the reader to pay attention to and imagine in their minds. Also different from soccer, Karoo style, where we looked at appreciating the simple things in life, a sense of camaraderie, using a word like somnambulant and slouch in order to get across this idea of this happy sort of contentment. The right word is very different because it's looking at stereotypes and jumping to conclusions and assuming before the whole story is heard. So I'm going to read it through and then I will go over the shadows, the door, the actions of the individual, and questioning definitions. Okay, the right word. Outside the door, lurking in the shadows, is a terrorist. Is that the wrong description? Outside that door, taking shelter in the shadows, is a freedom fighter. I haven't got this right. Outside, waiting in the shadows, is a hostile militant. Are words no more than waving, wavering flags? Outside your door, watchful in the shadows, is a guerrilla warrior. God help me. Outside, defying every shadow, stands a martyr. I saw his face. No words can help me now. Just outside the door, lost in the shadows, is a child who looks like mine. One word for you. Outside my door, his hand too steady, his eyes too hard, is a boy who looks like your son too. I open the door. Come in, I say. Come in and eat with us. The child steps in and carefully, at my door, takes off his shoes. All right, so you will notice the repetition of the word shadows, the descriptors of a door, doors being far away, slightly closer, more personal. We have the green looking at the actions of the individual, what exactly it is that they are doing in the shadows. And then we're going to look at the definitions that are questioned in this poem. So from the outset, we know that the poet is trying to find the right word. How do I describe this person? How do I tell people what it is that I see in front of me? So if we look at a terrorist, according to online dictionaries, I've done the definitions for the words in bold. A terrorist is someone who does unlawful or uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. So the idea is somebody trying to make a political point and makes it by using violence and intimidation against the common people of that particular country or nationality. Then we have a freedom fighter. So this is a person who takes part in a revolutionary struggle. They're trying to overthrow a government. They have a particular goal that they are trying to reach. You might have heard of the saying, one freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. You can also swap them over, like vice versa. But the idea is, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting, the person is going to seem very, very different to you. And that's partly what this poem is about, is perspective. Then we have a hostile militant, having a combative character. So if you think of combat, wanting to fight, aggressive, and especially in the service of a cause. So this is a person where maybe they're part of the freedom fighters group, maybe they're part of the terrorist group, Maybe they're a part of the people who are fighting against the uprising, but definitely an aggressive person. There is a cause, and they are a follower. Then we've got a guerrilla warrior, so a member of an irregular military force fighting small scale, limited actions. So, what this means is, let's say another country is invading, and there are small groups of the common people who band together, like they say it's irregular, and they are going to fight against the invaders using the terrain and the environment that they know to their benefit, okay, to their advantage. So setting traps, or they know the tides of the river, luring people into areas that they know, um, not many of them will be able to escape from. So that idea. A martyr is a person who is killed because of their religious or other beliefs. So, generally, a martyr is seen in a more positive light, especially the people who believe the same things, because it's more passive, it's not aggressive. And the idea of killing someone who hasn't done anything to harm you would obviously put that person in a very good light. But again, you're looking at perspective, because let's say the freedom fighters have somebody who dies a martyr, but the person who killed them would see them as a hostile militant. So you've got this idea of perspective. The other thing that you see or notice is the repetition of shadows. So in the shadows, in paragraph or stanza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, so definitely the majority of this poem has this idea of someone being in the shadows. Now this can be figurative or literal. So literally, if someone is in the shadows, you can't make them out properly. You can't see them properly. And that's when you start to jump to conclusions or make assumptions, because now you want to know what exactly is it that you're looking at. Then figuratively, if something is in the shadows, not all of the facts are there. It's not very clear. We don't know people's agenda or motivation or intention. So you've got this figurative and literal connotations. Then if you look at the green, I was looking at the verbs. In the last stanza, I focused on the adverb. So we've got lurking. Now lurking is definitely with the intent to harm. You are moving from spot to spot. It is slow, perhaps stalking. You are definitely looking for a particular person, and you are following them, and you intend to do harm. Then you've got taking shelter. So somebody who takes shelter obviously sees that area or thing as something protective, something that can help them. So the freedom fighter taking shelter in the shadows, they're hiding. Then you've got waiting, a little bit more passive. There doesn't seem to be a particular goal. Maybe they're waiting for a signal or for someone or for something. Then you've got watchful, that is a little bit more proactive. The person is looking out for something, very aware of what is happening around them and their surrounds. Then we've got defying, so somebody who is standing up against something, rising up against something. You almost have this idea of come at me, bro, or fight me. Okay, so defying, all right. Then we've got the person who is lost in the shadows, and at this point we understand that it is a child. And suddenly that changes everything, because the first couple of stanzas, you're imagining an adult, somebody who is, responsible for their actions, who has made a decision, who's going to see it through. And now you've got a child, and generally children are seen as victims, they are seen as passive, vulnerable, dependent, and you almost feel a bit bad for the poet, because they've tried to guess who this person is, and then it turns out to be a child. Okay, they got it wrong. All right. Then In the last stanza, it says, carefully takes off his shoes. So if you look at the poet's name, Imtiaz Dharker, although that is generally a male name, it is actually a woman poet. She's definitely female. She's written some other really, really lovely poems. Um, and if you consider her and the fact that she, was staying in another country and she was victimized and racial prejudice and all of that, you can definitely get the sense of why she's going to jump to conclusions, why she's reacting harshly, especially if she has been on the receiving end of something the same. Okay, is this person coming for me? Am I now going to be attacked? So, if we think in a South African context, we can look at the xenophobia. You can imagine people from other nationalities. If somebody walks into their store, what is this person going to do to me? Are they also going to try and steal from me? So you definitely have this idea of jumping to conclusions, assuming race and nationality coming into it, but then the person is proved wrong. And if you notice, the poet uses inclusive words. She speaks about herself, but then also talks about your door, and having a word for you, and a boy who looks like your son. So not only is she stepping up and admitting that she jumps to these conclusions, but she's indirectly and subtly saying to the reader that, you do it too. And everybody at some point in their life, falls down in the same area. We do make quick judgments and evaluations of people. And it says that this boy's hand is steady and his eyes are hard. So perhaps this is not the first time. And, they've been looking for a safe place, but maybe they've only been met with ridicule and rejection, abandonment. So his hand is steady and his eyes are hard. Okay, is this another person? Am I going to be rejected again? And then the poet welcomes them in and says, come and eat with us. And because the child realizes that this is a person from an Eastern culture where you take your shoes off before entering the house, that kind of respect and acknowledging the culture and not being arrogant about it, or insisting their own way, that definitely serves as a sting in the poem to the audience as well as the poet, because sometimes we make assumptions about people and then they turn out to be very wrong, so much so that we actually feel ashamed. And that is what the reader is supposed to come away with. So now we look at the questioning definitions. Is that the wrong description? Okay, trying to find the right word. Then realizing I haven't got this right. And then asking, using a metaphor, are words just simply these wavering flags? Okay, do words actually have any foundation? Are they concrete? Do they have an anchor? Or are they just blown about with every whim of the wind, and depending in which direction the flag um, waves and points, well, that's just the definition that we're going with, Is there nothing that we can actually stand on? Then she asks God to help her. Maybe the realization that she knows she's getting this wrong and she's doing a bad job of it. Terms of forgiveness. No words can help me now. Why? Because the child is just outside the door. Okay, the person is just outside the door. If this was somebody coming to harm her, well, it's too late now. And then she turns to the audience and says, I've got one word for you. Boy. Or you could choose son. And I take from the stanza that one word to be boy or son. because it makes it more personal. It gives you the idea that this is somebody that, you know, you wouldn't treat your own child this way, so why are you treating them this way? Then opening the door and the child steps in. All right, so there's kind of this acceptance afterwards. Also, just very briefly, the descriptors of a door: the door, that door, your door, my door, the door. Okay, definitely this idea of the person moving from place to place. If you think of like a skittish animal, they move to one corner, then they run across and move behind something else, and then they run across to find another hiding spot. But you definitely get the idea that the person is coming closer and closer. And obviously, because the person is looking out and the child has noticed them, and there's also the possibility of the child, you know, the doors shut in their face at each and every point, and they're the last one who can maybe help. All right, so quite a poignant poem. So questions 1.1 to 1.6 has to do with tone, imagery, theme, um, you know, terminology. What does the title suggest about the contents of the poem? So you're looking a lot at, you know, basic poem questions: tone, theme, figures of speech, your own opinion. Then the short paragraph question, 1.7 or 1.8. So 1.7 is the theme. The short paragraph question is looking at 1.8. Um, it looks at the imagery and the tone and how it works together with the structure in order to convey the theme. So basically, that's a way of saying, look at how the poem is written, look at the word choice, look at the theme, and how does it all fit together? And the answer is obviously yes, it does all fit together, and you need to give me an example of each of those and then explain it. Like I said in the other videos, that was in order to prepare the students for a poetry essay. So hopefully that helps. As I said, for the other poems, perhaps maybe other students watching this, your teachers selected the same poems. Um, and the other three poems that I chose for term 3 were Nightclub Pianist, a very, very short poem; Sonnet 18, obviously by William Shakespeare; and then Prayer for All My Countrymen. Um, so, yeah, good set of poems. And all the best for your paper 2. I'm not sure if you've written it already, if you're still going to write it, but regardless, I hope it went well. And all the grade 10s, good luck for the rest of your exams for this year. Cheers.